Hello everyone, welcome back to View. Today in this video, I'm too excited to share this project with you, which is going to take DevOps automation to next level. So, imagine you have a platform where you can clone any of the GitHub repository, have AI analyze its tech stack, and based on its information, it helps you generate all the Docker, Kubernetes, and CI/CD pipelines. Yes, that is the platform that we are going to build in this video. And all of the files, all of the DevOps files, like the Docker, the Kubernetes, and the CI/CD files, are going to be customized for that specific project. So, I have named this project as an agent bootstrapper. So, what is basically an agent bootstrapper? This is going to be a full stack app powered by FastAPI, Python in the backend, Google Gemini, and the modern frontend, which is going to be built with Next.js and TypeScript. So what it does it scans the GitHub repository that you are going to provide with the help of URL. Then it is going to scan the repo based on its language, framework, dependencies, and the entry points that it has used, and then create the tailored files of Docker, Kubernetes, and CI/CD. And it is also going to let you review these files, download them as markdown files, help you execute these files, all from a simple UI. Yes, you heard me correct. So, what are we waiting for? Let's go ahead and build this platform from scratch. Okay, so now let's jump in and see our platform in action. Here I have started the front end, which is running on the port 3000, and also the backend, which is running on port 8080. To see our application in action, we have to provide here a repository URL. So any of the GitHub repository that you have, your own project or some other project, other GitHub repo, here you can provide its URL. And this is the platform that we created into the last video, if you remember, okay? And then here you can provide the branch name that you want the DevOps automation for. So in my case, this is going to be the main branch, but in your case, maybe it is different. And then we are going to click on scan. So now what happens is, after we put the GitHub URL and the branch and we click the scan button, the app is going to clone the repo and analyze its structure. Here you can see it. The project name is given as this, repository URL was this, branch we are going to have main, and for languages, if you remember, we had HTML and Python, and the frameworks were FastAPI and SQL Alchemy. Database was SQLite, and we had some test, so it is true. And for our tech news agentic platform, the entry points were these. And for the infrastructure, you can see we did not have any Docker file, Kubernetes file, or CI/CD pipelines. We did not have any, so it has set to false. And these are rest of the files that we have into our project, okay? After this is done, we are going to generate a plan. Now, when we click on this, generate a plan, what happens is, it is going to review the scan summary. So let's click on this, and then Gemini AI is going to create a step-by-step execution plan with real file content for Docker, CI/CD, and Kubernetes. Now, it might take some time because it is going to scan your repo and then it is going to provide you a plan just like this. And here we have the Docker file created. You can see this. It has created your Docker file, and it has also provided you the environment variables that you have used into your project. Then the Docker compose file. You can just go through these files and look at how intelligently it has created all of the files. So first was the Docker file, then we had the Docker compose file, and then we had the CI/CD pipeline. Okay, over here you can see the dependencies that it has to install, and if you want to run any of the tests that you have created in your project, it is going to do so with this. You can go through this. This is just amazing. And then over here we have the Kubernetes manifest file. And not only this, but it has also given you where these files should be located in your project. So for this agentic-AI YAML file, it should be in your k@s folder. So you see, this plan isn't generic. It is tailored for your actual code base. You are going to see these files tailored for your own project, all customized. And then if you want to download this full plan as a markdown file, you can just click on this. You see, it has downloaded this full plan for you in the markdown format. And here you have this file which we just downloaded. You can see it. It was generated at this time, at this date, and the information about it, the branch, the project name, the languages, the frameworks, the database it has used. Create Docker file, it has created. Compose file, so you have this plan generated. Now, one more interesting thing I'm going to show you. Here you can see that we have no files right now. We just have the code here, but in this we don't have these files. If we go back to our project, when we click on execute plan, you see it is going to give you the execution result, the status basically. It created your Docker file, it created your Docker Compose file, the CI/CD pipeline file, the Kubernetes file, and all of this. So this is the generated file. When you go back to the VS Code, here you see this green changes. Let me increase this for you. Here we have the CI/CD file. Here we have the Kubernetes file. Amazing, isn't it? And then the Docker Compose file and the Docker file. So when we clicked on the execute plan button, the backend wrote out all of the files and the UI display each generated files over here. Here you can go back, here you can inspect, download them, or just use them directly into your project. So basically, this means that you can go from code to cloud-ready infrastructure in just few minutes, and that's all with zero manual YAML or Docker file writing, because this platform will automate all this for you. Yes, exactly. This is going to automate this whole process. For the backend, we are using FastAPI. We are even using Git Python and Google Gemini AI. Okay. For the front end, we are using Next.js, but before Next.js, what I did is I utilized FastAPI framework to create the UI, and basically it was in HTML, CSS, and that. But then I just changed from FastAPI to Next.js. And not only that, in front end we are also using Tailwind CSS and even Aslant. And also, how can I forget this? TypeScript, okay? And the Gemini AI that we are using it is going to analyze your repo and generate all this config files for you, okay? And for the DevOps, it is going to include the Docker files, CI/CD files, and Kubernetes files. Basically, the Kubernetes manifest file, which is going to be ready to deploy. And now you might have question, why is this useful? Why does this even matter? You might have this question. I'm going to tell you why. Because this is going to speed up your onboarding for the new projects that you are going to have. It is going to reduce your DevOps bottlenecks, and it is going to ensure that we have best practices by generating the configs based on your actual code. Last but not the least, this is going to be great for you or anyone who wants to automate the infrastructure setup. So yes, that is why it is useful. So now that we had the demo for this platform, why not let's go ahead and understand the front end and the backend files that we had created for this project. Let me just delete these files because these are not for this specific project. This was for the previous project. So yes, let's jump into the code and see how agent Bootstrapper works under the hood. We are going to focus on the service backend and the modern frontend built with Next.js. So over here we have our first file, which is the main.py file. This is the FastAPI app setup. The backend is powered by FastAPI, and in our main.py file, we have defined the endpoints for the scan, for planning, and for execution. So the first endpoint which we have over here is the scan endpoint. This is going to clone the repo and analyze its structure. And over here you see what it is trying is basically it is bringing you the repository URL, the branch, the project name, repo URL, languages, framework, database, or if you have any test written out in your project, if there are entry points, the infrastructure, the discovered files, and if there is going to be any node. Basically, this is our scan endpoint. Then we have the plan endpoint. This plan, what it does is it's going to send the scan summary that we bring from here, and it is going to send it to the Gemini AI, which is going to generate a tailored execution plan. So this accepts scan summary JSON format. Call the Gemini to generate a structured plan. And if there were any errors, it is going to show you that error. Last, we have the execute entry point, which is going to take your JSON from the plan endpoint, okay, and then it is going to write out your actual Docker, CI/CD, and Kubernetes file. Here you can see the plan, the tool, the arguments, the success check, if it was success, on fail, what it has to do, the results of it. Okay, what this is going to try is create the Docker file. And where do you going to have the Docker file? Write the Docker compose file, where to put that Docker compose file using the file path, set up the CI/CD pipeline, then generate the Kubernetes manifest files. And that is what we have for the execution endpoint. You can just go over these endpoints in detail, okay? If you want, the code is available on the GitHub. For the link, I have attached it into the description. Go ahead, check this out, code for yourself. If you have any queries, any doubts regarding any of this, you can just comment that out, or you can just reach out to me through any of the social links that have been always provided into the description, okay? So the next step we have is the Gemini integration. Basically, how are we integrating Gemini? For that, we have the planner file. Here in our planner file, we use the Google's Gemini API. You have to bring the Gemini API by going into your platform, click on the API key, bring that API key and put it into the .env file, okay? And here you are going to provide the API that you have, okay? Let's go back to the planner file. So here basically the prompt that we are going to give Gemini is going to be built dynamically from the scan summary so that the AI generate configs specific to your repository tech stack. Okay, here I just showed you the one example, but you can try any of the projects and you can just test this and see how it tailors the files, all of these files based on your project's structure, technology stack that you have used. For generating the plan, we have this generate a tailored execution plan from the repository scan. Use the scan summary details like its languages which have been used, frameworks, entry points to customize every file for your project. And here we have provided the prompt for our platform. We are telling the Gemini to act as an expert DevOps engineer. Analyze the following repository details, and based on that information, Gemini has to generate a step-by-step execution plan to build and deploy this project. to test this, I also added the print statement to print the raw Gemini response, because when I was building this, I kept getting errors. Because Gemini, it does not only provide the JSON, but it always had the starting headline, like something like, "Here are your files." Something just like that. And because of that, the front end was not working correctly. It was not getting the proper JSON format. So for that, I had to add this respond with only valid JSON. And after only then, the front end worked. So yes, this is also the important step. Okay. And then the file generation. So we have executor file for that. In executor file, here we have the executor function that takes the AI generated content and write it directly to disk, and it is not using any hard-coded templates, okay? But if you want to take this platform to another level and not just get those files into your current project, what you can do is create another function where it deploys these created file into your GitHub repository. Perfect. Good idea. You can take this to the next level by doing so. So what I'm basically saying is, after you got the response from the platform, you have to create one function where you are going to tell that function to deploy these files, to deploy the files it has generated into your GitHub repo. Yes, something like this. Perfect. I just got this idea right now. So yeah, this is going to be amazing. Let's take this platform to next level and do so. You got this idea, right? And of course, the first endpoint that we had was the scanner endpoint. So how can I forget that? Let me take you to that file. Here basically how it scans the repository is basically based on the detect languages function. Detect frameworks that are given over here. You can add more frameworks that you know of over here. The database also. But there are many other databases that have been used in different projects like MongoDB. You can add over here. Find the entry points here. If you have main py file, app.py file or something or so. If you have the Docker files, then the Gemini don't need to generate the Docker file for you once again, because you have the Docker file, right? So we first detect if we have any infrastructure into our project, if we have the Docker file, the Kubernetes file, CI/CD pipeline files, and if we have any of those files, it is just going to not create those files once again, okay? Next, we have the Git utilities file. That is one of the most important file. This provides a function to clone the GitHub repository into a temporary directory. And over here, the main thing that we have into our platform is basically we support both the public and the private repos. Private repos are accessed using a GitHub token for authentication. We check out the specific branch it provided. We also do that, yes, because it's not that you are just going to have the main branch. You have different branches too. So specific branch if you want to provide, and return the path to the cloned repo along with the status node. And if cloning fails, it is going to clean up and raise an error. You can see the error into your UI. But if the repo's clone was successful, it is going to show you successful and it is going to give you the summary. That's what we have for the backend. Now that we are done with the backend, let's go ahead for our frontend. And now to get in detail into our front end, the front end is built with Next.js and React 19. And the main entry is our page.tsx file, which lets the user input a repo URL and the branch that they want to scan and generate the DevOps automated files. Okay, so this is our main entry point for our front end. And after scanning, the app stores the result in local storage. Yes, local storage. We don't have any database for it, but if you want to add the database, you are most welcome to upgrade this project. And then it navigates you to the plan page. If you remember the demo, over here we have our plan page. This displays the scan summary and lets users trigger the AI-powered plan generation. and it also shows the execution plan step by step with details for each tool. Then we have the execution page, where this page loads the execution results from the local storage once again and displays the generated files like the Docker, Kubernetes, CI/CD files. And it is rendered into a code block for easy review and copy paste that if you want to. And if you remember, you can even download the markdown file for your code. So that is added into the results folder. Okay, and here we have the code for downloading the file. That is what we have for the results page. And for styling and the layout, the app is using Tailwind CSS for clean and responsive UI that you saw. And the layout is defined into the layout folder with just simple navbar and a footer. Okay, so with this architecture, it means that you can plug in any of the repo and instantly get production-ready DevOps configs, all powered by AI and modern web technology. Not just that, let me show you how this code, the front-end code, looked before. We had the templates. Basically, these were just the HTML files. There was nothing much to do with it. But then I changed this basic HTML and CSS into Next.js. This full code's GitHub repository is provided into the description. You can go ahead, check this out, and make changes to this application based on the ideas that you get. I would look forward to it. And if you want to connect with me, the links are in description. So yes, that is what we are going to have for this video. Okay, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye and take care.